Okay, I assume I'm in focus here. Now I'm going to be doing a test similar to what PMP did, where, well, not similar to PMP did, similar to the video that they referenced. Now, they reviewed a video where someone put in steel wool into a test tube after they did it in acetic acid to help along the reaction. And that steel wool would take up oxygen from the air that's in the tube, and it would suck in fluid to replace that volume that it removed from the air. At the end of it, they could measure the amount of air taken to be roughly 1/5, so 20%, which fits in with what we know about the atmosphere. Now, PMP's attempt to prove or disprove this, what they ended up doing was they got stainless steel wool and they put it into a jar, which was inverted into a bowl of water. And they made no attempt to actually stop that making a seal. Doesn't really matter though. And they put it into the sun. And they actually noted that the liquid level went up and down based on the time of day. And they went, aha! We've proven that the liquid level will rise due to temperature, so this test is contrived. What we're seeing is the temperature change that's making that height level. They're doing this specifically to trick us. So what I've ended up doing was basically just a repeat of the test that PMP referenced. Now there's test tubes A and B. Test tube A on the left will have the steel wool. Test tube B will have nothing in it. Now the reason I'm doing that is to that we can account for any temperature change. So any temperature change seen in test tube A will result in a liquid height change. So as it cools down, it'll suck in liquid. As it heats up, it'll push it out. And that means, and the test tube A will be right next to it in the same pool. And what that allows us to do is we can actually measure the liquid height change in test tube B, and then subtract that from the liquid height in test tube A, so that we can actually get a result which is independent of thermal change, because we can take that into account. So here's what I've done. Here's the setup. Okay, just so we know what we're dealing with here, these are the items I have for this rust test. So from my local hardware store, I grabbed this steel wool. Now notice it's not stainless steel, because stainless steel won't rust, so it won't actually show us anything. Now it doesn't matter what grade it is. The finer the grade, the quicker it will rust. Now I've also got some oil. It's canola oil if you want to know. I've got a tray which has a little bit of depth to it. A couple of test tubes. Now this is vinegar that I just had lying around. I didn't actually buy any specially for this. This is what I got, just Coles brand. Those of you on Australian Coles is, well, it's just your generic shopping centre. I think the equivalent is Costco, I don't know. Tesco in England, that's it. And a chuck. Now the steel wool in test tube A, I dipped it in acetic acid, or vinegar, balsamic to be honest, and let the excess drip out and clean the tube. It's sitting in about, I guess a centimetre of oil, maybe half a centimetre of oil in that tray, with the chuck underneath just to allow porosity so that it doesn't actually form a seal to stop any reaction occurring. Now they're away from any direct sunlight or heat. The nearest heater is about 4 meters that direction. And what that'll mean is that we're far enough away that heat shouldn't affect one tube instead of the other. And if it does, test tube A will be hotter, although I doubt we'd see this, but test tube A would be hotter, which means you'd see less liquid rise, because as gas heats up, it expands, and so it would actually push that oil out. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you guys updated. Okay, so it's been 3 minutes, and as you can see, There's already some rise in that one on the left, and a little bit more that acetic acid's coming out. But we're already seeing a liquid change after 3 minutes. Now B, with nothing in it, is doing, well, nothing, as expected. And if P&P actually did this test, they'd actually see this effect. But they didn't. They effectively did B because they used something that doesn't rust, which is stainless steel. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. Now, there's been no change in the liquid height in tube B, so we can measure that as about 19 centimeters, 190 millimeters. Let's have a look at this one. Hang on. So about 15 centimeters. So the way that we can figure this out is that Matrim says there's 21% oxygen in the air. So what we can do is we minus 21 from 100, or we can just round it to 20 just for a general rule. So which is 80. Now 80% in a decimal form is 0.8. So if we multiply 0.8 by 19, we actually get 15.2 centimeters. So that's the remaining height that we should see, which is actually pretty much what we see. We've seen a 20% change in that liquid height. Okay, so it's been another half an hour. So this has been this has been going on for about 50 minutes. So let's just have a quick look. Now there's still no liquid height change in test tube B. Let's have a look here. Still about 15 centimeters, give or take. So we're still sitting around that 20% mark. So in the first 20 minutes, we got a rapid rise, and then the following 20 minutes, no further rise. So I think this has hit its end point. Okay, so lit splint should go out because there's no more oxygen in it. Let's see what happens. Immediately goes out. So here's test tube B. Lit splint, let's see what happens. Still lit as it goes in, so. Okay, so as we just saw from the test, we saw a height change in the liquid compared to A and B over a period of about 50 minutes. Now after the first 20 minutes, we saw a height change of roughly 20%, because 15 is 80% of 19, and which means that 20% was consumed. And what we also saw was with a lit splint test that the lit splint went out in test tube A, but didn't go out in test tube B. Now what does that tell us? That tells us that there's no oxygen, or not enough to sustain a flame. Because flames need oxygen for there to be a flame. Okay? We all know that. We've all seen it, we've all experienced it. Now, so we can attribute that change in height to the oxygen, and we measured it, and we found it's the same as what mainstream science claims is in the air, which is about 20% oxygen. Okay? Now, P&P's test doesn't show anything really. Their test is here.
But Pete and I know that this is all a controlled demonstration.
It's contrived.
The reason why this happens is because the temperature in that test tube, in the left-hand test tube,
This is our understanding, of course,
is colder than the temperature outside, the room temperature outside, and that's why the temperature in the water
goes up.
The temperature, the level of the water increases.
Yep. The gas that's in the
It's contracting.
And this is a video that we did today just to confirm our findings.
Yeah,
essentially.
because I did this about 9 days ago, where I put a stainless steel scourer in I wet it.
Yeah,
with cold water. You know, I shook off the
excess water.
The excess water, put it into a glass jar, inverted it into a bowl of water, and I put some blue food colouring in the water so people could see the water.
And
now,
absolutely, I'm just going to.
This is going to be my final
demonstration,
show of this video, simply because when I first inverted the jar into water, the air inside the jar pushed out the water
that was in the bowl.
So you could see through the bottom of the bowl.
Absolutely, and it was white. But obviously, over the period of weeks, the water's crept back into the jar, which means that the air inside that jar has contracted. Now it's stainless steel. Okay, now that has a very low percentage or likelihood of rusting. Okay,
well, it's a scourer.
So we're seeing the same water displacement in an environment where no rust is occurring.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and you can see that they're not really showing anything. They had no control. They had stainless steel, which they knew wouldn't react, and they left it in the sun for a long period of time and noticed that there was a height change between day and night. And they said that's due to temperature change, which is true. But then said that this temperature change is evidence that science is contriving the results to fool us. No, you can't get that from that experiment. If they wanted to show that rust doesn't consume oxygen, thus, or the process of rusting doesn't consume oxygen, and thus there is no oxygen in the air, they would have done the test that I just did. And if they were right, they wouldn't have gotten any change in height between their control and their main experiment. But I've just done the test, and I've shown you guys, and the test holds up through mainstream science. Now, it's important to note as well that this isn't the only example of them mutilating experiments in order to try and prove something. They've done it every single step of the way, with only a few examples. Exceptions. Every other example, to my knowledge, of them doing an experiment, they have changed or altered the experiment to provide false results. And specifically results that support their claim. So I'll keep an eye out on that. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. If you have any questions regarding the video, previous videos, or in general, leave a comment or send me an email. Email is in my about section. And I'll catch you guys around. Take it easy.